Hey, Mando. I'm going to have to get used to that. So welcome to the podcast. I think today is our episode 0. We're pretty excited to be here. I'm your co host, Eric Ramirez, here with the unnamed, undetermined name podcast, but I think we're working on something close to Latin media or something like that. And my co host here,
Mando Gomez.
Good to have you here. I think we've been working on putting this together for maybe about a month now, right? That we got this great idea to share some of our thoughts and ideas with people and see what kind of engagement and ideas we could get. Anything you want to say about that, Gomez or
Yeah,
Mando?
what is the audience, man? Like sometimes when I hear a podcast, like for who is this content, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think maybe it's a little bit about we're kind of you want to find your tribe, right? People that are kind of think like you and maybe gone through certain experiences. Maybe some folks are further along than us. Maybe some people are a little bit just starting on their journey. So I think
Mm-hmm.
it's folks that are really thinking about entrepreneurship, joining teams, other folks that have like-minded that want to build things or want to create things. I think that's kind of where we kind of started on our journeys. We've known each other for I don't know how long has it
12
been.
years,
12,
15
15
years,
years. I'm
something
not
like
really
that.
even sure. We got to look up our old emails, but yeah, it's been quite a journey. But I think that's one of the reasons why I think we gravitated towards each other because
Mm.
we liked exploring ideas, and I think that was maybe one of the initial things, right? And like to just talk about them. So that 15-year journey has kind of led us here to where we are today, right?
Yeah, for sure. Something very interesting is how we can have seen the growth of the Hispanic community, at least here in Texas, is just booming, right? I noticed globally there is almost 600 million, which is half a bill, right? And just in US alone, it's close to 18%. So we are a lot. Keep growing.
Yeah, that's true. And you mentioned Texas, right?
Mhm.
I'm in Houston. You're in Houston, essentially,
North
but
side. Mhm.
right. You've traveled kind of other states and seen other things the way other states are doing. I've pretty much stayed in Texas my whole life in terms of living here and going to school here and education and things like that. But you've seen through work and things like that, different states and maybe the approach of the Hispanics or Latinos that are out
Yep.
there. Um, how they congregate, how they coalesce in a business. Um, whether it's like actually in a work setting or if it's maybe more of a social setting. you
Yep.
know I don't know that if there are differences, but I think it's good to be able to have a platform to support each other and talk through things that that we tend to get, just because our experiences are slightly different, right? I know a little bit of my background. I was born in Houston, so Houston
A
has a
true
very big.
Houstonian.
I'm a true Houstonian. They're hard to come by sometimes because a lot of
Mhm.
people have moved here and are and have come here and you know um, and put roots here. So, but Houston is known for having a lot of Hispanics and things like that. So there's a very large population here in Houston, and in Texas in general, I think. But you've worked in other states too. Do you see that the same thing over there?
Well, I mean, just even a step back a little bit, I was born and raised in Mexico City. So for me, other cities are little towns, man.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, it's pretty massive. So in my 20s, I moved to Houston, and that's where we met, right?
Yeah.
And then I had the chance to keep basically I built my startup, had an exit, then I start going into corporate. So some of those places basically I have to stay in Amazon for Amazon. So I went 2-3 years over there in Seattle, literally in their headquarters. Then after that I moved to Austin. I worked for Twitter a little bit, uh, something interesting there. Elon Musk was my manager for a few months, so we'll dive into some of the things that I learned. Right, being
Mhm.
close to this high performing type of a personality, right?
Yeah.
And but yeah, what about you? And right, the last years, what you have been doing?
So we met while we were both working at Hewlett Packard. So we were both in technology at the time, right? And
Hmm.
I've always been kind of a techno person, a technology person. I did software engineering in school. We did electronics, things like that. We built a lot, right? So that's kind of was a natural. Let me go find, a place where I can be an engineer, work with technology. And Hewlett Packard has a um, it's not their headquarters, is it, in Houston? But
Used to
that
be though. Well,
it used to be,
remember it
right?
was
It was
compact.
compact. It was compact. And when I joined HP, I think they had just done the transition, or they were acquired by Compact was acquired by the HP. So it was maybe a year or two after that I came in. But
And you're an Aggie for life, right?
and I'm an Aggie for life. I've got the ring to prove it. Class of '04, back in Aggie land. But I've always been into technology, and that's kind of where I've always taken things. However, about almost 10 years ago, I made a switch to move into healthcare. So I work at a large academic medical center. Houston has one, maybe the largest medical center in the world. And so I've started doing that. All of that, I think I've always liked helping people. And I think healthcare is a really good way to really connect. And, that the mission is really helping other people's and during their tough times, and helping them kind of get better and things like that. So that's one of the reasons why I kind of made that switch. But I'm still in technology there in the hospital setting, so I haven't abandoned it. And my job really has more to do with bringing in technology into that healthcare setting, and make sure that there's adoption and things like that, and making sure implementations go well. um,
Yeah, no, and for sure, I think that something that I want to share. I started coding when I was 7 years old, and that was kind of interesting in my career, right, in my life. So
mhm.
my love and passion for computers was very, very early, before YouTube, before any of the things, right? So it was just literally on books.
Mhm.
So and I think that also I consider myself an entrepreneur by heart. Even if I have been in corporate, I always am looking for those startup ideas, right? I like the pace, I like the movement, I like the to bring a product to reality, and I think that that's where sometimes we riff ideas, right, on what we can implement. um, my first startup was when I was 19 years old. Now, it used to be very rare, right? Now
Mhm.
you see them across, and we will discuss in this pod different personalities that they are cracking the code, right? Uh, and yeah, I mean, I think that I see that on you as well, that you have that serial entrepreneur mindset.
Yeah, I've always been a problem solver. I've always said, man, there's got to be a better way to do that. And in a lot of ways, it's really frustrating seeing seeing the way some things are, and saying, I know you can do it better. There's better ways, and a lot of times technology is a big part of that. Of course, technology doesn't solve all problems. I think that's a fair thing to say. There's things like process and culture and things like that. But yeah, technology has just kind of always been part of that for me, and trying to use it to solve the world's problems. I mean, really exciting nowadays. You see all this stuff about the AI. People are using Chat GPT that you know maybe they never were really all that tech forward or techie, but Chat GPT. You have all kinds of people using it and just kind of kicking the tires. So that's kind of an example of a technology that really took off, and I think a lot of people are trying to explore that. And I think that's probably one of the topics that we're going to touch on. How is
We have
AI
to.
impacting? Yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting. I mean, even we use ChatGPT just for helping, like, with idea
Hmm.
generation. What does that
To
mean
outline.
for an entrepreneur, right? Okay,
Hmm.
that's going to be great, a great use for that kind of stuff. So really excited about that. But yeah, those that seems to be kind of an interesting thing that hopefully we're gonna talk about with this podcast.
Yeah, something I know that it's difficult for you to call me Mando, but I wanted to tell the audience what is the story behind that, and sometimes it's about positioning yourself. And let me tell you, I had a friend in Amazon, and I'll say his name, so I'll do a shout out to him. Uh, his name is Dustin, but he goes by Dusty.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that he was able to get positioned very fast. He's an executive, basically, and I asked him, it's like, hey, did you choose the nickname? I think that I need a nickname. There's a lot of Erics.
You know,
So
are there? I mean, hey, well, if folks haven't noticed, we're both of our names are Eric's. I'm an Eric, and you're an Eric. I'm with just the C though. So
so then I asked my buddy, is like, how do you pick your nickname, right? And he said, well, I mean, you have different ways. And he started giving me the story of a friend of his that he just wanted to have a nickname, and suddenly he said, just call me Helicopter. And people thought that it was funny that actually somebody just said, no, it's too long, I'm gonna call you Chopper. And actually he kept the nickname, right? It's just Chopper. And everybody in his network, they know him by that. So I think that there is a lot of if the nickname sticks, right,
if it
you can
sticks,
use
yeah.
it. And then my full name is Eric Armando Gomez.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then he said, well, why you don't use just like Mando Man? It's like, At the beginning, it was weird though, because when I joined couple companies, I was using it. I was like, who is that guy, right? They would ask me.
Did you ever did you use like Armando before or anything like that, or just like,
Never.
hey, let's go with Mando?
Yeah, I just literally joined the company, and I use it as a social experiment to see if, and believe it or not, man, because it's weird. It's like, and now is the Mandalorian is there, right? Like with
Oh, you're right.
so even now in the Slack, I have my own icon, which is like the helmet of
The helmet
Mandalorian.
of Mandalorian. Oh, that's awesome. Well, actually, you know that helmet, didn't we use that as a logo for a we did like a web, like one of
we
our right
It was
ideas. We
called
use it, right?
Titan browser. Yes.
Titan browsers for security, right? It's
Yep.
kind of
Yep.
interesting. We use that I just thought about that. Man, we've done lots of things together
Oh
over the
yeah,
years,
for
right?
sure. I mean, 15 years is a lifetime, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the story why you might see me in different places as Eric Gomez or as Mando Gomez, but my Twitter handle is the Mando Gomez. So
The Mando Gomez. And for those listening, I may refer to Mando here as Gomez because that's how we referred to each other back when we were working together back at HP. So that kind of always stuck with me. But I'm going to do my best, Mando, to make the switch.
all right.
It's pretty interesting.
Another story there is that because we were two Erics at work,
Mhm.
I was the nice Eric, and evil Eric was the evil Eric. Just listen to the laugh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you didn't want to get me mad. It was kind of funny. Not that I was really evil. There's another story behind that. I think it was just because at HP, right, I moved from being from software engineering to being in the project management. So just that alone made me evil in a lot of the developers'
With the
eyes, right?
engineers, yeah,
With the
exactly.
engineers. So so don't get the wrong idea. But yeah, that's really where that came from, I think. But it did stick, and you know what? It's like who has that alter ego? Like Beyonce has that alter ego, Sasha Fierce. You can tap into the alter ego whenever you need it. So I tapped into that evil. I said, "Evil Eric's coming out." Whenever things needed to get done. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. But my new place, I don't go by evil Eric anymore.
This
Just by Eric. I don't think I have any new nicknames.
Yeah, yeah. This is a good segue. So, what is the purpose, right? What is the goal of this project?
Um, so okay, I think we both have talked a little bit about what can we do together? I think podcasting has been around forever now, but I think it's a good way for us to connect. One good way to build ideas, and really help others along the way. I think when it always helps, as you're building ideas in terms of like business ideas or a startup or things like that, you're trying to come up, maybe like as a serial entrepreneur, you always kind of have your eye on something that you can do. I think it can be a good way for people that are interested in these types of topics like business, technology, and really for us, we have the shared culture of Latinos. We want to maybe take that vision and that approach. So maybe from our viewpoint, slightly different, right? Because you immigrated yourself from Mexico, and I'm
Yeah.
a native Houstonian, but of course my parents immigrated from Mexico when they were teenagers. So
Yeah.
um, similar, but similar viewpoints, and it's an opportunity for us to kind of help folks that are in a similar situation to us, and see if we can supercharge their journey by sharing our stories, and thoughts.
I
What do you
think
think?
so. And I think that for me as well is the concept of si se puede, right? And
Hmm.
I'll use some Spanglish. So
Yeah.
because I think that's basically a phrase that is being used in all Latin America, not only in Mexico. Sometimes Mexicans we use it when a soccer match, right? But
Right.
it be actually that phrase is an activist phrase, which is
Hmm.
like empowers kind of Hispanic community, because I think that sometimes we don't see enough of us right on the table, and I think that it's important to have a representation, and we have the opportunity in your field, which is in health, or as well on my field as well, in social media and so on, kind of that diversity. So the impact of the Latin community for entrepreneurship and different point of views, right? And you notice that lately has been very very political as well.
Yeah.
So it's everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Very true. I was just going to say that, in terms of culture, I think Latinos in general, I think they're predisposed a little bit to having their own business, or maybe not. They may not see themselves as like an entrepreneur, but a lot of folks, I think, when they immigrate, that's one of the ways that they see themselves being able to earn a living is by really having their own business. I know my mom, when she came in, of course, she was still, a little bit younger, but she ended up moving into kind of starting her own business. And she still runs that today. And I
mhm.
don't even know how many years that is now, but, it's something that she grew with. It started off a little bit probably different than what she has now, but she's always been kind of on that paralegal track. Um, she didn't necessarily go and get a lawyer degree, but I always encourage her now. Hey, you might have more time now, maybe that she's looking towards retirement. Hey, maybe she can go ahead and try and get that JD, but that's that's a lot of work. So
Yeah.
she's telling me to do it. I was like, well, I don't, you know what? It's pretty expensive nowadays. But this whole time as a young kid, I always saw her, and I've talked to her about this. I saw that she
Mhm.
was a business owner, and everything was really up to her. She did it also because she had some health issues growing up, and so that gave her a lot of flexibility that she needed, in order to make sure that her health was being taken care of and she could work at her own pace and things like that. But it's ended up working out. I mean, now she does she has a building, she does administrative services, she also has a defensive driving school here in Houston. I think she's well known within the community. A lot of people will see her picture and then recognize her right away because she's advertised in like the local papers called like the Subasta, things like that, and people always recognize her. And she's always been a big proponent within the community. And even from years ago, she would get us involved with certain things. Like she started. a nonprofit called Estamos Contigo, which I think at the time there was like a hurricane that went through and really hurt some of the I forget one of the countries. This has been already like 20 years back, but we've been involved in that since we were a little bit younger too. So she's always kind of helped us along the way to think differently. Don't necessarily know. Don't necessarily think you have to follow the norm path that's it's everyone's there. Of course, I
Yeah.
still followed that path, but I've always had, ever since, as a kid, I always had side projects, right? Like you said, Gomez, you learned coding as a young kid.
Yeah.
Same thing, like, computers weren't really ubiquitous in the way that they were now when we were kids or when we were younger. And so, but my mom had a friend that said, hey, you need to get your kids into computers and things like that. So he helped set us up with a computer at home, which not everybody had. And so from there, I learned how to use all the applications. Broke a lot of things along the way, but a lot of times that's how you learn. And so I would start doing consulting type services as a kid, right? Even before high school, as a middle schooler, things like that, just because you learn things and other folks maybe aren't as savvy within technology. So that's kind of how we do it. And in the same way, I think that's maybe what we're doing today too. It's like we maybe have a little bit more exposure to the latest in technology. So it's, why not share our experiences and what we know about these technologies to others that are trying to learn about them?
Yeah, for sure. And I we will go deep in some of the topics, right? But I think that I want to drive home that right now we are talking in English, and that's actually on purpose. We want it, and we'll do some content as well in Spanish because we have that transition as well. But I think that is very important for Hispanics to learn English, right? Um, why? Because it's right now is at the moment is the language on the whole world, right? You go to YouTube and there's a lot of content out there in English. So just to tell you, when I moved to the US, I didn't know well English, man. It took me maybe between 6 to 8 months to pick it up. So um, and I think that is necessary, right? So, and I encourage people. There's a lot of things, right? You have Duolingo now. You have like YouTube. You have a lot of different tooling to be able to kind of teach. And sometimes even it's your parents. Maybe you already are born here. You are in a school, but don't let your parents just stay because I know people that, and you too probably, people that they have been
Hmm.
here for
Yeah,
25, 30 years and they sometimes they
they
refuse, right?
don't. Yeah, they don't pick it up.
Yeah, maybe because they think that they think that might be impossible, and that's what we wanted to do with this project, right? It is possible. Sí se
Hmm.
puede learn English, right? And it takes time, like anything. But yeah, if you're a kid and you see that your parents are struggling, help them out. Have the patience because obviously it requires patience to. Oh, my father, mother doesn't know how to pronounce this, right? Or they have a thick accent like mine. What are you saying?
Well, even me, I was born here in Houston. I think I still have a little bit of that accent as well. Hey, but Spanish was my first language, right? When we grew up as
Mm,
babies, we talked in Spanish growing up, right? But you know what happened when we were like in as going through like grade school and things like that? Uh, they told us we would get in trouble if we talked Spanish at school. And so, we
really?
learned, yeah, so we learned English still like through TV and things like
Sure.
that. But in school, we would get in trouble. They would tell us, no, you can't talk in Spanish. And it was a big no no. So that was pretty much all through grade
Will
school.
they smack your hand? Do they send you like the
Oh,
chalkboard?
well, the schools that we went to, they would hit you on the head with a ruler. That's what it'd call you potato head. That was like a normal thing.
Those were
So
the times.
yeah, yeah. I don't know if that's still allowed, but hey, maybe it worked. I don't know. We're not doing too bad right now, but I will say that I think that changed as I went into middle school and high school. Then it was very much so encouraged. Like the high school that I went to is it's like one of those what do they call it? International baccalaureate IB schools. That's what they called it. And the school that I went to really focused on languages, and so again, really encouraged. So we studied like 4 or 5 languages or something like that in high school. None of them stuck, and Spanish is barely stuck. So that's the other side of this coin to what you were saying, Mando, is that
Hmm.
yeah, people that are coming here and immigrating, yeah, it makes a lot of sense to learn English. But I think what a lot of times happens, like the second generation, I don't know, actually, I don't know what I'm considered first, second generation, but anyways, you grow up, you speak English here, and sometimes you lose the Spanish, right? Because even now, for the most part, whenever I'm talking with my parents now, a lot of times it's in English. Of course, we speak Spanish back and forth also, but primarily I think it's English. Is just by default or by comfort. I don't know. But whenever we have visitors that are coming in from Mexico and they don't know English, or no, I will say they know English,
Hmm.
but in a way like they'll speak to us in English because they want to practice their English, and we speak to them in Spanish because we want to practice our Spanish. So it's kind of like an interesting back and forth because we're both speaking in different languages, but for different reasons. So that's pretty interesting. But they're trying, to your point, they want to pick up the language. I think it's important.
Yeah,
Without that, can't get
I
too far.
this is my point of view, right? I think that before it used to be that you are an alphabet, right? You didn't know how to write or read. Then that changed to basically you need to know English. And now is like, do you know how to program or use tools and technology and AI, right?
Yeah.
So it's advancing kind of the literacy, and you have to in order to level up, you have to do it. So, uh, talking about that, I think that one of the things that we're going to have to touch base a lot in this podcast is mindset. A lot of the mindset, the game. The game is always it starts in the mind, right? If you don't think that you
Mhm.
cannot do it, then guess what? You won't do it, right?
That's right.
And I think that I notice a lot of friends because sometimes I have helped people around along the way, and sometimes they don't believe that they can do it.
Mhm.
Have you heard about the imposter syndrome? Right, it's very popular, and I sometimes I was thinking when I learned that term that it was females, and no, it actually is like if you see the distribution and the research,
Mhm.
it happens to Latinos and Latinas, and not only obviously Latin people, right? It's across everywhere. And I think that it's a mental game where you need to have the awareness that your skills and capabilities to be able to get your accomplishments and feel properly, right? If you go to the wiki uh, definition, right, and I think that I have it in my notes is basically it's a psychological occurrence in which people doubt of their skills and talents, accomplishments, and have a persistent internalized. Basically, they have fear, right,
Mhm.
on what they are experiencing, despite that they have uh, the capabilities to do
Yeah.
it.
The
What's your thinking
talent,
there?
or yeah, I think so too. And you know, I I want to try and understand it. I think maybe some of it may come from like role models. I think maybe as for Latinos or Hispanics here in the U.S., uh, I like growing up. I feel like I didn't have a clear cut like role model that I said, "Hey, this guy looks like me." You know, I feel like I could do what he does. With proper guidance or whatever. But I think in terms of that, maybe that's why someone's lacking. It's lacking a little bit, and you may not feel like you can do that, or that's something that's a possibility for you. Of course, my mom was a business owner early on, so I kind of understood that that was a an option for me, right, in technology. But still, there was always maybe a sense like, can I do that? Is that a path that I can take? Just because you don't necessarily see people that are representative doing those things, and maybe
Yeah,
you just ignore it, or I don't know, don't think about it too much.
yeah, it's very hard. Sometimes, and I remember chatting with you one time. You were saying that you were invited to a podcast, and somebody asked you, maybe Hector, right? Uh,
Yeah.
yep, and basically, you couldn't remember a kind of a role model, right? Which in my mind is like is bad, right? Like that we don't see that, right? And I think that is important. It's not obviously we will be we want to make sure that we are, whether we fill up that gap or we bring
Hmm.
some guests to
Yeah.
help to for you to see, to show you that there is people out there. They might sometimes not be so outspoken. They might be sometimes on the shadows, right?
Hmm.
But there are very brilliant people out there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of the things that we can do as a service to our community is that, show people, hey, this is these people exist. We need to get their stories out, make sure we understand, our we have this slight slant towards technology, so we want to do that. But really, we want to hear about any other disruptors in really any industry, and get the word out, because there's a lot of hardworking people from our culture, and I think sometimes you don't hear about that a lot. So I think we
Yeah.
can do our part to try and share that.
And sometimes we get mocked, and I want to touch base on that, right? Because uh, I sometimes racism, it might not be only for the color, it might be even for biases. It's like, you're educated, you read that book, when they don't know you, right? It's like,
Yeah.
motherfucker, I know how to read. Right? It's like
Is
I probably read a book a fucking week, right? So
Mhm.
and it's insulting, right? I learned to have tolerance, right? I learned to yeah, we all not are lawn mowers, right? Like I
Right.
know, yes, I can do it, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's
Me too.
but it's not only that. It's not only that our skill, right? Or the roofers or the construction, right? We
Hmm.
we there's everywhere, right? And as well, I have two daughters, and obviously they are Hispanic, part Hispanic, and I think that I want a better word for them, right? Where remove that bias of, you are Hispanic, then you are ignorant. They are not saying it, but they are thinking about it, right? And it used to bug me, but now is my motto is be so great that they cannot ignore you, right?
Yeah.
So uh, whatever you are, whatever you are doing, and as you mentioned, working hard people, our culture, they work hard, man. They work
Very
pretty
hard.
hard.
Hmm. Yeah.
There is this skit from Dave Chappelle. You guys should Google it. It's basically, he said that he's in a line, and suddenly there is this couple, a Chinese lady and a Hispanic guy, and then he's like, "Hey, where are you from?" Dave asked to the Chinese lady, and the Chinese lady, she got pissed, and he's like,
Mhm.
Are you saying that I'm from California?" So, but if you are thinking, referring to my ethnicity, I'm a Chinese descendant, right? So
Uh-huh.
she was like hurt, right?
Hmm.
And then Dave was like, "Well, what about you?" And he asked to the husband, like, "I'm just Mexican." so so Dave Chappelle actually said, "Let me tell you, you two beautiful couple, you guys gonna have the hardest working people kids that the world have seen, right?" Which, yeah, I mean, it's Dave Chappelle. I mean, and the lady, she just gets pissed and she just left. But that's
Uh-huh.
a good joke.
Yeah, it's actually pretty. That is pretty good, but no, I mean it's so true. Have you seen recently? There's been a lot of with the stuff going on in Florida. I've been seeing on TikTok how uh, you know with a lot of the Hispanics, people kind of leaving the state, or you've seen the truckers saying we're not making deliveries to Florida, things like that. And then you see kind of the funny things where are the non-brown people trying to do the construction work, or the the lawn mowing, or things like that, and it goes horribly wrong, right? So there's it's kind of, it makes for a funny skit or a funny joke or some funny TikToks, but there's a lot of truth in that. I think even South Park did an episode around something like that. If all the Hispanics disappeared, something
We
like that
live.
recently. Yeah, I
Yeah.
haven't. I don't think I saw it recently, but yeah,
Yeah.
there's a
I
lot
think that
to it.
in some of the, as a techie, I try to stay away from politics, right? Why? Because basically you have two colors, and it's unfortunate that you have to kind of pick like your red shirt or your blue shirt, right? Like whatever it is, right? So,
Hmm.
and I think that sometimes it is very hard, right? Because sometimes you disagree with both.
That's the case a lot of the times, right? I don't think
Yeah,
you're ever going to get 100% agreement on one side or the other, right?
yeah, for sure. Now, you touch base on the networking and the community, right? And that's what one of the things that we are looking as we are developing this project. And one thing that I was able to see the power on how it compounds. Do you remember, like back in almost 10 years ago, when we started in 2013, when few of us we just knew about Bitcoin,
Hmm.
and I mean, that was just a little group of people, right? It was
Yeah.
you know, like our homie Lee, you know,
Yeah. We're going to get Lee on the podcast too. Just
for
watch.
sure. Yeah. That guy is an architect. He's an inventor. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and learning how to basically that community, right? Like we saw it in the infancy, right? The project
Hmm.
started 2009, but we started actually getting more closer to the technology.
12 or 13, I don't
2012,
remember.
12.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were like all in like freaking 2013, right?
And third,
So
that's when we did, yeah, we did a little bit more there.
yeah. So I think that we will touch bases the things that we saw right on this podcast. What do we saw in the technology? What we were the
Hmm.
first movers, because we were the first movers. Like all these motherfuckers that they said, like no, like we were like in the
Yeah.
beginning of the wave, right?
Back then when we first got into it, I think there was just some coolness around it because there's like this hardware stuff. You could build stuff like, we used to run I think they're called like USB erupters. Do you remember that? They're basically
The
little
little
US
USBs.
the little USB miners, and I would stack like 10 to 15 of them up with little fans running on my desktop and just pointed at these miners because they would get hot and they would just churn there and mining Bitcoin. So back then, I think it was just a little bit more fun. But once we saw like, hey, the price go up a little bit, or like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe there's more to it. And so we made, we did. I had the KNC miners, the Neptune, the big 5 boxes, lots of stuff that we could get into actually on those things. But yeah, that was really fun stuff. But hopefully we could share some of our experiences, maybe our thoughts on crypto in general and Bitcoin and things like that. I think those would be really interesting things that we can share to some of our listeners or viewers.
For sure, and I think that sometimes is it's not about go and buy anything, right? So I think that for us, it's more important that you understand the frameworks, the
Mhm.
lenses, how we are seeing things, so that way you can apply it to yourself. And a lot of the investing points of views you can apply for other things, right? Even to losing weight or whatever. So
I'm
we'll
working
touch
on it.
base. So, um, all right. So let's move to the next section. Uh, we have been touching a bit on the mindset. We have been touching on some very broad strategies. So you have seen right now lately a lot of manifestation.
Yep.
What's your what's your point there?
Wait, do you have the sound effect here? You know, you hear about it. I don't know. I don't know exactly how to think, but I think it's grounded or based on real things, right? They say you should write down your goals. That's when people talking about manifestations, they even have their, what are they called, their pin boards and stuff like that. But I think it just goes back to also still, if you don't write down your goals or if you don't make them known, there's no way that you're going to get to them. So going along with that, setting goals and things like that, then you can start building plans to get there. So that goes along, I think, with the whole manifestation stuff, right? You've got to be thinking about it. You've got to be intentional about it. You've got to act on it, not just think about it. So there's several steps involved. I know I do a lot of I've done a lot of programs that talk about personality types and things like that. So I might allude to some of that. I do some coaching and things like that too around that for organizations and for like just one-on-ones. But I think there's something to it. A lot of people might like to do deep dives and just learn about stuff. Some people are just natural learners, right? They want to learn about everything. But then when it comes time to maybe do something about it or act on it, that's where it becomes a lot harder for them. The learning and the research and things like that are easier, but when it comes to action, it becomes a little bit tougher. But when it, like we mentioned, networking, that's how you start building teams and bringing people together. So me and Mando, uh, we're kind of like-minded in lots of different ways. And I know Mando is very good at pushing and being more active. So I think naturally I like to do a lot of the research first, but still do a lot of the action too. But I think Mondo's on a different level. So that's why I like partnering with him, because he's going to drag you along one way or the other. So
Yeah,
what do
whether
you
you
think
like it
about
or
that?
not.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So, and I think that for me, it bothers me if somebody just manifesting and doesn't do shit, right?
Right.
it's like, come on, you can write whatever you want in your journal, and you can have a lot of plan. I do like the saying from Mike Tyson, right? Like everybody has a plan
Until
before
they
you go
get punched
to.
in the face.
Yep, basically. So
Yeah,
and I think that for me it's just it's action, right? Like when
Mhm.
you're showing up to the fight, it's not that day, right? It's basically all of your training, all of the preparation, all of the everything that you did in order to get to that point. So that's what it bugs me if there is no action attached to that
Yeah.
manifestation. Um,
Now, some people really are just super lucky. You can call it what you want and things are going to fall in their lap, but that's not really the case for most people. I think you
mhm,
might just hear the outliers there. And those are the things
mhm.
that the ones that, everyone says, "Hey, just by luck this happened." But really, I think it does take preparation, right? That luck, it's really because you've taken steps to get to the point where you're prepared to receive that luck.
Yeah, and there is this guy. His name is Naval Ravikant. He's almost like a philosopher, and he was the founder of Angel List, and he's
Mhm.
in Silicon Valley and all of that. And lately, he has been very active in Twitter. Um, and he basically says that there is four types of luck, and it really resonates with me. And basically, the one that you're talking about is the first kind of luck, which
Mhm.
is the blind luck. Like everybody understands that. Basically, you can use it's outside of your control, randomness, and let's say that you just buy a ticket and you win the lottery. Voila! It's just appear of thin air, right?
Hey, if I can make that happen, I'm not going to argue against it.
Ah,
So,
yeah. I mean, I'm not going to fight with that neither, right? Like, it would be silly to fight with luck. So, the second type of luck is the luck for motion, and
Mhm.
that's the one that is basically sometimes we see it with our Mexican fellows, right? With the Hispanics, where they grind it, they hustle, they just are there every single day showing up, right? And they just kept basically they build that luck on trying to the small business or whatever. But in my point of view, that one is almost like a collision, almost as a as an accident, right? You start like going like day by day, and it usually just something happens, right?
Mhm.
A good client shows up or whatever, right? The third type of luck is basically the awareness, and that one is when it gets interesting because your experience kind of it allows you to position and strategize where you want it to be. So you have a good understanding of the game or the arena, and then you start kind of almost uh, luck is working for you, right? Like
Yeah.
you are putting yourself in places where you can get good luck, right? The
So,
good. Go ahead.
so do you mean like would an example be like, hey, I want to start a business? Like you need to maybe go to like your local chamber of commerce or go to an entrepreneurship club or something like that.
That's right.
I mean,
You
is
put
that
you
what you mean?
Yeah, you listen to this podcast. Plug in for our own, right? So
Right.
obviously, it was not scripted, guys. By the way,
All right.
yeah, no, I think that is basically doing that consciousness of putting yourself out there, right? uh, go to Facebook groups. There is so many. You can go Discords, you can do Telegram, you can basically go to find it those people that they are like-minded, right? And they can help you, and that's the awareness, and will help you to kind of keep moving on the framework, right? To start seeing where are the some of the good opportunities. We'll start dissecting businesses and how they are doing their business model and their strategy and how they're marketing, and how they can leverage advertising. But yeah, that's kind of uh, the third type of lock.
Mm-hmm. And is there a fourth type?
Yes,
You
the
mentioned four,
last
right?
one, the last one is like is basically. Do you know who is Oprah?
Oprah? Who?
Exactly. Those
And
names,
you
they.
get a car.
That's right. Well, if
Right?
you,
Yeah, okay.
I wouldn't mind a Lambo.
That's pretty lucky right there, I think.
Which is basically you just your uniqueness. There is only one Oprah, right? There is only one Elon Musk, right? There is only one, like he was only one Steve Jobs,
Hmm.
and basically those unique sets of skills, it makes or attracts a specific luck. If you basically funding like Elon, right? He
Hmm.
basically say, "I'm gonna buy Twitter." There was a bunch of investors, right?
Hmm.
That they just were like giving him the money, right? Just like, hey,
Yeah.
don't sell like Tesla stock, right? We'll give you the
Yeah.
money. So you create that type of luck, and it's possible. I have seen it. I have seen
Do
it.
you do you think for like this unique, can you set out and say I want to be one of these unique lucky people, or do you think that people are born that way, or like how does that work?
It's interesting when you are little. You're unique, right? Like, I mean, basically, you just want to act the way that you want to act. And
Hmm.
suddenly you go to these systems, a school, number one, right?
Yeah.
That they pound you. Like, even you were able to speak Spanish properly and all of that. And the school's like, nope, you
Yeah.
shouldn't know.
Good point.
So that's a perfect example where
Hmm.
the system is making you. And look, I'm not totally against systems because sometimes when I speak like this, people think that I'm an activist, and like
Nah, you know.
not at all.
Hmm.
I'm just a thinker. And but what I know that is that you have to see also the progression of humanity, and sometimes it's very difficult for everyone to have at least it was to have education. And in that way, when it was the industrial revolution, they needed people for that industrial revolution, which meant you need people on the machines, you need people on factories, you need people that actually have a schedule, right? So you need the
Hmm.
9 to 5, you need the people that they can be sitting down doing an activity over and over and over, right? Because what? Now we have machines. Now we have AI, we have robots, right?
Hmm.
So we don't have to do that. Now that's where creators communities now they can make a living, right? And again, we'll
Hmm.
discuss in this podcast how you can do a side hustle that can become very profitable. But yeah, I think that is your question on, do you get born like that? I think that we all do. I think that
Hmm.
is just we get into a system, and it could be your family, your community, your village, right, or your
Hmm.
school, uh, your city, your country, whatever, and it makes you have these confinements, and sometimes maybe you might not be able to start thinking outside of the box. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. I think you're really right. I mean, I've education. I've always been a big proponent of education. Maybe not so much, kind of similar to you. Maybe not because of the it's a system. I've never really liked that part of it, but it's at this point a lot of it is kind of just part of life. You want to get a degree, multiple degrees, right? I'm working on like the second master's at this point, and was looking at the PhD program, but I really am more in it for the education. Um, but I think, I think, I think what you're saying is, we're all born unique and we lose it through these systems. But maybe outlets like this, like what we're doing with this podcast, it's an outlet for creativity, an outlet to sharpen our thoughts, to sharpen philosophies. Maybe that's how we return back to that. Really taking from all the education that we have, right? That we've
yeah,
gotten along the way. And maybe that's, one of the ways we get back to being more unique, and maybe we can be the next Oprah, and you will get the Lambo, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Authenticity. The game
mhm,
is authenticity, right?
mhm,
Me is just me, right? I'm not trying to be somebody else, and that's where basically the next 40 years of my life, whatever, right? Whatever is the amount of years that I have left,
mhm,
is just to be what is the best version of myself,
yeah,
right? And have you seen the statue of the self man? It's a statue made of bronze.
mhm.
uh, it's beautiful. It's basically this like massive statue, and it's trying to carve them itself, right?
Itself, right? You get to decide what you're going to be, right?
That's right. Which does the game, right? It's like it
Hmm.
doesn't mean that you have to be an entrepreneur, or doesn't mean that you have to be a creator, right? You can be a musician. You can be
Hmm.
whatever you want to be, right? But I think that
Yeah.
anything requires some level of discipline to be able to become better in your craft, and that will give you fulfillment, right? That independently whether you get the money or not. Obviously, it's nice if you do, but
Right. Or whatever you set your goal to be, right?
mhm,
Could
yeah,
be just freedom. Money usually helps with some freedom, right? Or that level of freedom, or you want to be able to travel, or you want to be doing, right, whatever it is. Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's
but
true.
but that's kind of rounded up that type of luck. I'm glad that you brought it up, because that's kind of ultimately what we want, right? To be our true selves, and to get to that stage where it's a self actualization. Um, yeah. So
Well,
now
si
I
se
think that
puede.
si se puede, right? So which is
Mhm.
a very interesting phrase, right? We will keep saying it repeatedly. Si se puede, until like
Okay.
subliminally we will tell all these Hispanic
Tagline.
people.
Tagline. That's right. I think so.
I think that, by the way, somebody basically did a copyright on that brand,
Oh.
on Si se puede.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah, but it again, it's so public domain that uh,
Yeah.
that.
Well, we'll see. Let's do some
We'll
research
see if
on
we like
it.
Eric gets a lawsuit in his.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see about that. But so I think, I think we're starting towards kind of wrapping up our episode 0 here of the podcast. Kind of so unnamed at this point, but I think we're getting close. Um, I think what we can let's lay out for the audience, what can they expect from us kind of moving forward. I think we've got lots of plans and lots of ideas, but ultimately we want to have a community, engage with our community, and really provide value to them in the ways that in what they want to see. So I think we might have a long list of things that we can do, but what is it that people really want? So do you want to what do you think, Mando? What are the things that we think we can uh, tap onto, and maybe we
Yeah,
can
no, I
get some
mean,
feedback?
dude, we have so much knowledge, right? Like we have knowledge in real estate, right? You and me, we built our dream homes, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
like by ourselves, well, we hire people, but we basically from zero, right? So we have built businesses. We were the OGs crypto DJs,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I mean, personal development, business, communities, right? Gadgets, AI, right? Right now I'm playing with AI. When we saw mobile and VR, right, with the
Mhm.
Oculus, we doubled into that. We
Oh,
did a
yeah.
Kickstarter as well, right? I
That's
mean, we
right.
have done
Forgot
a
Hydrix. That's right. Oh my goodness, forgot about that one too.
yeah. So I think that is to you, the listener. Tell us like which ones are more interesting, right?
Hmm.
And we'll tailor the feedback. Right now, we will go with our instincts, with our gotchas, and we double down on based on your comments. What type of content do you want to see?
Hmm. And I think we've talked about a lot of the maybe the techie stuff and stuff like that, but I also I think the one of the viewpoints that we want to take also is what's the viewpoint from a Latino or Hispanic. Um, I mean, we're both here in Texas, so I think there's an opportunity. Like we can go to events, share what we see at these events, give y'all, uh, experiences that maybe not everyone gets to see. We could talk about lifestyle stuff, vacations, things like that. So I think there's a lot of things that we can really chat about. I mean, it's funny that I I asked Mando, hey, can you ask Elon if he can get my Cybertruck order ready soon? But I think I didn't get a response from him, so I don't think he ever asked him. But things like that, I'm all for. We just got a Model Y not too long ago, and my wife Sandra, she really loves it. She's all about it. So I think we converted her into a Tesla. I don't know what you call it, a fanboy or something like that. But I can't wait for the truck.
Yeah, because I think that yeah, I think that some of these topics are interesting. Even we can even talk about Teslas, right? Like there is so much technology there in the car, right? So,
Mhm.
but again, I just wanted to reiterate. Tell us what do you want to listen? What do you want to know? For me, usually I like to deconstruct some of the playbooks on kind of these people. How are they doing it, right? Because I have been on the table. I mean, I had the opportunity to meet Jeff. Uh, Elon was my manager, right? And I also, when I was in the bank, Jamie Dimon. So a lot of these people that I really feel grateful to be able to be with all of these people, and you can see, you can learn, right? You can learn from some of the things, and yeah, sometimes you see interviews, but sometimes there are things behind the scenes now on how they think, right?
Mhm.
And the frameworks, and again, we will touch base on some of the things that I have learned through the way. Any closing remarks, Eric?
No, just mainly, hey, I'm really excited about this. I'm excited getting opportunity to work on another project with you. I think that it's going to be really fun. We're going to have a interesting journey here. Let's see what we can do for the audience, share what we've learned along the way, and hopefully maybe we can get feedback from them and they help us too.
Any handler that you want to share, like Twitter or any handler?
Uh, you know, uh, you can probably find me at Net Shadows on Twitter if you want to get a hold with me. But I think we're gonna make a new. I'll probably make a new handle for the podcast and things like that. But if there's
Yeah,
something that anyone wants to get a hold of me, you could probably message me there.
yeah. And for me, just go to the Mando Gomez. I created that one recently, so it's clean. But yeah, the Mando Gomez.
All
All
right,
right,
sounds good. Well,
this is a
we will
wrap up.
talk to y'all next time.
Thank you.
All
Cheers.
right,
Bye.
bye.
Peace.